Here is a dress that I recently thrifted from the charity shop that I want to transform into a two-piece co-ord set. And it cost me just £5. But here's what it looks like on me. Oh my God. It looks like a hospital gown. It looks like I'm going for a colonoscopy. I cannot. What I loved about this piece though is that it is 100% linen. It's too big for me as well, so I've got loads of fabric to play with. Oh gosh, it definitely has that charity shop smell. So I am definitely going to have to put this in the wash. Now, my plan is to make a really cute short set with maybe like a camisole top or a cropped t-shirt type top. Not 100% certain yet. One of the things I wanted to do was to preserve the pleating, like the tucks at the bottom. However, I've realized when I was placing my pattern pieces that the hem is curved. And so matching that up is going to be really difficult. Also, when I was putting my pattern pieces on, I realized that I don't have quite enough fabric to do a coordinating set with the patterns that I've chosen. And so what I'm going to need to do is to unpick this and then lengthen it out. And with the bodice, I also need to unpick these to make it wider so that I can make the top that I want to make. So they're going to have to go, unfortunately. So now that you've seen what I'm working with, let me quickly tell you about the patterns that I ended up choosing for this transformation. I'm using two patterns that I think are perfect for beginners. For the shorts, I'm using McCall's M8585, which is a relatively new release. I would say this is a pattern for a confident beginner. If you have done a zipper before, then you'll absolutely fly through this. And if you're not confident in putting in invisible zips, then I have a hack that will transform how you feel about putting zips in. Trust me, you will get it right every time if you use this hack. I will show that later on in the video. And for the top, I'm actually using a free pattern. It is the Etty Camisole by Tammy Handmade. This one is really great for beginners, and because it's free, it's great for experimenting with. I ended up choosing these patterns for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're relatively simple makes. And number two, they actually fit on the dress. I'll put the links below in the description. And if you're new here, welcome to my channel. I'm Claire and I share budget-friendly sewing tutorials and thrift transformations. If you want to see more projects like this, then hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up, because it really helps me to know and understand what content you want to see. I began by taking the pockets off the front before unpicking the pleats. This gave me a fairly considerable amount of extra length to the dress for the shorts. I had to be so careful not to rip a hole. The construction of this dress was frankly really poor. The side seams were just overlocked without being sewn first, and there were unfinished overlocker thread ends. And I'll be completely honest as well, I had to be careful not to rip a hole because this really isn't premium linen. It's pretty basic quality, but here's what I saw in it: a decent amount of fabric in a beautiful shade of blue that would work perfectly for my summer wardrobe goals. I decided to lengthen the shorts slightly for a more sophisticated look. I think when you're aiming for that chic, city-ready vibe, proportions matter just as much as construction techniques, and I didn't want to look like I was heading down to the beach. Now, when I made these shorts previously, I had to take 9 centimeters, yes, 9 centimeters out from the waistband. So this time I sized down 2 sizes. I cut 2 front pieces and 2 back pieces as well as the waistband. I didn't have enough fabric to do the facing in the same fabric, so I used a cotton from my stash for that. Now, it's a bit difficult to see in this video, but this linen is very see-through, which is not ideal for shorts. So when I was problem solving this, I considered simply wearing nude underwear with it, but I knew that I would feel more comfortable if it was less see-through. So next I thought about adding a lining, but I've never added a lining to shorts before, and I wasn't sure if I could pull it off, so I decided instead to add on a lightweight interfacing. Here I am cutting the lining out. My rotary cutter is so squeaky. Does anyone know how to fix that? The interfacing was definitely the solution to pick. Not only did it solve the transparency issue, but it also gave the whole garment a little bit more structure, and I think it makes the basic linen feel much more substantial. This is one of the things I love about DIY fashion and upcycling in particular, because you can customize everything to work for your needs and your body. One of the things about commercial fast fashion is I think that it assumes that everyone is the same, but when you're making your own clothes, you're in complete control. Next, I sewed the darts before doing the crotch seams and the side seams for the shorts. Then it was onto the waistband, which is also interfaced. Now, I promised you at the start that I was going to share with you my invisible zip insertion hacks. As a beginner, I absolutely dreaded inserting zips. As soon as I realized this particular hack, honestly, I get them right first time every time. Here's my method. I sew one side of the zip, then I iron the seam allowance on the other side and line everything up. I then take a piece of body tape, cut it down to size and add it to the zip. It's really important that you keep the body tape away from where the needle will be sewing, otherwise you'll trash your needle. Press down and then open it up. Pin the rest of the zip and then take it to the machine. Honestly, it works for me every single time. You don't need to worry about removing the tape. You can either pull it off or alternatively just wait for the first wash and then it will come away really easily. Next, it was on to adding the facing to the waistband before turning it out and stitching in the ditch to finish, which I didn't film because it really stressed me out, but it turned out absolutely fine. Now onto the top. I use the Etty Top by Tammy Handmade, which is a completely free pattern, and I will link the pattern below in the description if you would like to make your own version. I deconstructed the top of the dress and unpicked the pleats for extra width. I really needed this because the original dress wasn't quite big enough for my pattern pieces. I had to do some strategic Frankensteining where I sewed two of the bodice pieces together, which meant that my top gained an extra seam down the center front, but that's okay. The key to successful upcycling is being flexible with your plans. So you might start with one vision, but the fabric and the construction of the garment will tell you what's actually possible. So you just need to be creative with your problem solving rather than following rigid rules. Now, one of the reasons I picked this pattern is because of the beautiful scalloped neckline, which I think is such a lovely design feature. The instructions suggest to mark the scallops directly onto the facing to help when sewing. I did this with my heat erasable pen, but just make sure that you do yours with a 1/2 inch seam allowance suggested and not the 1/2 centimetre that I did. Next, it was time to sew the facings to the front and the back of the top. These facings add opacity, which is very much needed for this lightweight linen, and I think using a blue facing just brought out the blue of the linen even more. I also understitched the facing so that they don't roll out when wearing. Then once the front facing was done, it was on to the back facing. So here I have the back facing about to go onto the back piece. You can see how see-through this linen is on my ironing board, can't you? Crazy. So I pinned it down. And then I added the straps, making sure that they weren't twisted. Looking good. Then I took it to the machine, double checked that everything was good, and I was really happy with it. I changed the construction of the side seams for a cleaner finish, so I opened out the facing and pinned the bodice pieces right sides together and the facing pieces right sides together. Sew with one long stitch from the bottom of the bodice piece to the end of the facing piece and then finish in your normal way. When you fold the facing over, you'll have a lovely enclosed seam with a clean finish on the top hem. Time for a quick fit check, and I was pretty happy with it. So I did the hem by overlocking, turning over and stitching. Now I had finished both pieces, I tried them on together and they looked like pajamas. Something was missing. And I think this is the reality of refashioning or upcycling projects. Sometimes your first attempt doesn't quite hit the mark that you're aiming for, but this is where you learn to pivot and problem solve. This is when I remembered this gorgeous gold rickrack trim that I had in my stash, and the moment I held it up against the pieces, I knew it was the missing element. Adding the gold rickrack was honestly magical. I applied it to the hem of the vest top and then along the side seams of the shorts, and suddenly these two separate pieces that looked like pajamas became a cohesive designer looking set. I think this one might be my best one yet. Believe it or not, I did actually press this before I put it on, but this is linen, which is why it creases so badly. I am so pleased with how this has turned out. I love the addition of the rickrack. Definitely saves this set from looking like it is a pair of PJs. I also really like the scallop detail, although admittedly it is very subtle. If I had my time again, I would definitely make the scallops deeper to make it look more intentional. But by the time I realized that they were very subtle, I'd already trimmed the seam allowance to literally like 1 or 2 millimeters, so that wasn't happening. I also love how you can tuck in a little bit of a French tuck. Tan from Queer Eye would be proud. I really love the French tuck on this because it just takes away that rickrack detail, but you still have it on the side and the back. I'm so pleased with how this has turned out. I hope you enjoyed this upcycle. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more.